Absolutely. Here's the revised version, with a more natural everyday American voice, smoother flow, fewer forced pauses, less written by AI energy, and no section labels. It's late on a Sunday night, and you're doing the math again. Not because anything went wrong. Nothing went wrong. You're just lying there in the dark, running the same numbers you ran last week. Mortgage, groceries, car insurance, utilities, maybe student loans, maybe daycare. Maybe that credit card balance you keep telling yourself you'll finally get ahead of this month. And somewhere in the back of your mind is the same quiet question. Is this really what life is supposed to feel like for the next 20 years? Because for a lot of people, the mortgage isn't just the biggest bill. It's the bill that quietly controls everything else. Can you leave the job you hate? Can you cut back your hours? Can you take a risk? Can you breathe for a second without wondering what happens if one thing goes sideways? That's why the day you pay off your house doesn't just change your budget. It changes your life, not in some flashy overnight rich kind of way, more like the pressure finally comes off. The room starts to come back. Your money changes, your stress changes, your options change, and over time, your whole life starts to feel different. And that's what most people miss. Most mortgage conversations get stuck on one question: should you pay it off early or invest the difference? And sure, that's a fair question. On paper, if you have a really low rate, there are plenty of cases where investing wins. The math can make that look pretty obvious. But real life is not a spreadsheet, because the real impact of paying off your house isn't just the interest you save, it's what happens when your cost of survival drops. That's the part people tend to overlook. You don't just get rid of a payment, you get rid of a pressure point. And once that pressure point is gone, you start making different decisions. Now, obviously, when the mortgage ends, your housing costs don't magically go to zero. You still have property taxes, you still have insurance, you still have maintenance, the roof still gets old. The water heater still picks the worst possible time to die. The county still wants its money. So no, if your mortgage payment was $2,800 a month, you probably don't suddenly have the full $2,800 wide open. But for a lot of households, you may free up something like $1,500 to $2,000 a month in real usable breathing room. And that's a big deal. That's the difference between feeling stretched all the time and finally having some margin. Margin to build cash reserves. Margin to invest without feeling like you're rolling the dice. Margin to stop putting random emergencies on a credit card. Margin to plan ahead instead of constantly playing defense. That's the thing about financial progress. It usually doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from finally having enough room to make good decisions consistently. And the money is only part of it. The bigger shift for a lot of people is mental. A mortgage isn't just a bill. It becomes background noise in your life, like a browser tab that's always open. Even if you're paying on time, even if things are technically okay, even if nothing is on fire, it still sits there in the background shaping how you think, how much risk you can handle, how trapped you feel in your job, how scary a bad month feels, how quickly a surprise expense turns into stress, how much energy you have to think about anything beyond just keeping the machine running. And when that payment disappears, a lot of people describe the same feeling. Not excitement, at least not at first. Relief, quiet, like something that had been humming in the background for years just suddenly shut off. That kind of peace doesn't show up very well in a spreadsheet, but it shows up everywhere else. You sleep differently. You think differently. You don't feel as cornered. You don't feel like every paycheck has already been claimed before it even hits your account. That changes the way you move through life. And honestly, this is one of the most underrated ideas in personal finance. Freedom is not just about earning more. It's also about needing less. A lot of people spend years trying to raise their income, but they never lower the floor of what life costs. So even as they earn more, they still feel stuck, still feel like they can't exhale, still feel like they need every dollar coming in. But when you pay off your house, your monthly expense floor can drop hard. And when that happens, your options start to widen. The job you hate becomes less permanent. The career change starts to look more possible. The business idea doesn't feel quite as reckless. The chance to work less, live slower, or take a lower-paying job you actually care about becomes something you can seriously consider. That's what people miss when they only look at mortgage payoff through the lens of return on investment. A paid-off house doesn't automatically make you wealthy, but it can make you a whole lot more flexible. And that kind of flexibility matters more than people think. Because for a lot of households, every major life decision has to pass the same test. Can we still cover the mortgage? Once that question goes away, life opens up in ways that are hard to appreciate until you've lived it. And then there's the really practical side of it. What do people actually do with the extra money once the mortgage is gone? Some people start investing more, which is probably one of the best case scenarios. You take what used to be a required payment and turn it into long-term wealth. Retirement accounts, index funds, a brokerage account. The compounding can get really serious over the next 101520 years. And the best part is, you're not even finding extra money. You're just redirecting money that used to go toward debt into assets that actually build your future. Other people save more. They beef up their emergency fund. They stop financing every car repair or home repair. They finally have enough cash on hand that normal life stops feeling like a financial ambush. They build sinking funds for travel, medical costs, family stuff, or home maintenance without feeling like they're one setback away from a mess. Some people become more generous. Some help their kids more. Some help their parents. Some finally feel like they can give without immediately regretting it later. And a lot of people just start making bolder decisions. Not reckless ones. Just decisions they couldn't really make before. They start the side business. They scale back their hours. They walk away from the job that was draining the life out of them. They choose flexibility over status, time over appearances, peace over squeezing every last dollar out of their career. That's one of the most common themes you hear from people who've paid off their house. They don't always say they feel rich. They say they feel free. Now, to be fair, we do need to keep this grounded. Paying off your mortgage early is not always the mathematically best move. If you locked in a very low rate years ago, and you are disciplined enough to consistently invest the difference over a long period of time, then yes, there's a very real chance the market comes out ahead. That's not fake math. That's a real argument. But it also assumes real-life behavior is going to match spreadsheet behavior. And that's where things get shaky. Because invest the difference sounds great until the difference quietly turns into more spending, better takeout, more subscriptions, a nicer car, random convenience, a dozen little upgrades that feel harmless in the moment but never turn into actual wealth. It also assumes you're emotionally fine carrying a big fixed monthly obligation while also riding out layoffs, market drops, health problems, burnout, and whatever else life decides to throw at you. Some people are, some people absolutely are not. And that matters. Because this decision is not just about percentages, it's about knowing yourself. If a paid-off house helps you sleep better, save more consistently, avoid lifestyle creep, take fewer panic-driven financial actions, and build a calmer life, then the behavioral return may matter more than squeezing out the last bit of theoretical return on paper. That counts. A lot, actually. At the same time, a paid-off house is not some magic fix for everything. You still have taxes, insurance repairs, and all the normal costs that come with owning a home. In some places, those costs are no joke. And if someone drains every dollar of liquidity just to become mortgage-free while ignoring retirement, emergency savings, or high-interest debt, that can absolutely backfire. So this is not about turning mortgage payoff into some moral victory lap. It's not good people pay off the house and smart people don't. It's not that simple. For some households, aggressive payoff makes a ton of sense. For others, a balanced approach makes more sense. For others, keeping the low-rate mortgage and building investments elsewhere is completely reasonable. The point is not that there's one right answer for everybody. The point is that a paid-off house gives you benefits that go way beyond a narrow math debate, and those benefits deserve more credit than they usually get. Because at the end of the day, paying off your house is not just the end of a debt, it's the start of a different kind of financial life. Before that moment, a huge chunk of your income is tied up, protecting a decision you made years ago. After that moment, more of your income can finally start working for your future, instead of just covering your baseline existence. That's a massive shift. Your money works differently. Your choices feel different. Your stress level drops. Your timeline changes. You become harder to corner, harder to pressure, harder to scare into staying stuck. And that might be the most valuable part of all. So, no, paying off your house doesn't instantly make you rich, but it can do something just as important. It can lower your monthly burn rate, reduce your stress, widen your options, and give you the kind of financial breathing room that lets you build the next decade on purpose. That's the real story here. Not that the payment is gone, but that your life starts to feel different when survival gets cheaper. And for a lot of people, that shift matters a whole lot more than the spreadsheet ever captures.